All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Mythgard Academy. This is session number 21 of our Morte d'Arthur class. We are hurtling towards, dashing, a little traversing and tracing going on, but we are heading our way towards the end of this book. Not perhaps super rapidly, but I've been what have I been doing? Bunches of things. I did remember, by the way, finally this week, to do the reading assignments for the next section. In fact, through the end of the through the end of the long book of Sir Tristram, and then we're going to get to the Holy Grail. And actually, the bits at the end, which I've been saying are really the best bits in all of Malory, are also kind of comparatively short, really. So he gets more concise as he gets better as well. Anyway, yeah. Oh, Karita, I agree. This book is so much fun to do recaps of. So yes, if you have a loved one in your household who is not reading this book and you are summarizing what happened, that's always that is always fun. Always fun. Yeah. So anyway, okay. We are headed back here with Sir Tristram and Sir Lamorak and a whole bunch of people. But actually, tonight, I am setting out to do something intrepid. I am planning on covering about twice as many pages of text tonight as on any other single class session we have done so far. This seemed like a reasonably good patch to kind of speed up a bit through, because it's sort of scattered all over the place even more than usual. Lots of fun little adventures, some of which seem almost completely disconnected from everything else, like the random adventure singularly of Sir Dinas the Seneschal of Cornwall, right, whose like girlfriend and brachets get stolen and he goes back to recover his girlfriend and brachets at the end. For instance, as an example of like a thing that Malory just threw in there, which is anyway. Yeah, so we'll see. Stephen, no, my copy does not have a bunch of blank pages. It's all good. We're going to cover so much stuff. It's going to be great. So, but first, before we do, a couple quick announcements. The first thing I wanted to remind you of is that tomorrow is the day of the last Mythgard Movie Club of the year. This is the discussion of The Crimes of Grindelwald, the new Harry Potter genre film that has been out now for a while. A really fun kind of return to the roots of the Mythgard Movie Club. That was the first thing that they, the original Fantastic Beasts was the first thing that they discussed. So it's going to be fun for them to return to that here this December. Yeah, December. That's totally the month that it is right now. So they're going to be doing that tomorrow evening at 8:30, I believe. But you can check for details and the registration link and stuff on the Signum University homepage. Go to Signum University and scroll down a bit, and you will see the Mythgard Movie Club image right there for you to click on and go through. So anyway, so that's going to be fun. And then the other thing that is going to be fun, which is significantly further down the road, is Tex Moot. Tex Moot is our next regional moot that is coming up, starting to approach now. It's almost a month away. Saturday, January 17th is the date of it. I've been getting registrations just pouring in for Tex Moot. Tex Moot is looking like it is going to be, again, our biggest regional moot of the year for as far as attendance is concerned. So come join us, because the tickets are selling like hotcakes to Tex Moot. It's going to be a really fun look. The theme of that of Tex Moot this year is essentially like the modern oral culture. Look at audio productions and consuming things, both books and podcasts and things like that. In audio stuff, I'm going to be on a panel with some other podcasts and readers and things to sort of talk about the whole audio thing. Anyway, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'm hoping to get to see some of you there, Deborah. Looking forward to meeting you there and seeing some other folks. I got to meet a bunch of people last year at TexMoot, so I hope you will. If you're anywhere, if you can get to Waco, which is where it's going to be on the 17th of January, that you can come join us there. So, all right. And those are my announcements for today. So let's jump right in, because I finished my slides last week. I totally did, like every single one of them. So we're starting with a brand new slide today. You may remember we left poor Tristram sick in prison, and with Malory, the narrator, somewhat going out of his way to be sympathetic, right, and making some commentary upon how sickness is really the worst thing. You can handle all kinds of other things, right? You can endure if you're a prisoner, but boy, if you get sick, it's tough, right? And he does seem to be speaking from personal experience there. And we had Tristram as the object of our pity there at the end of last week's reading. There, even Sir Palamides was feeling sympathetic for him, right? This is his reconciliation. So you remember I was saying that it wasn't clear initially what Sir Darras, his captor's end game was, right? He took him, he found out that Sir Tristram was the knight who killed 3 of his 5 sons at the tournament of the Castle of Maidens, and then so he found out that the guy that was harboring under his roof was the slayer of his son, so he took him prisoner. And his kin came to visit, and they all wanted to slay him, right, to slay Tristram. But his host and prisoner and prison guard says, no, don't kill him. And I was saying it's sort of wasn't clear what this was building up to, right? So we start with what this was building up to. Sir Knight, me repenteth of your sickness, for ye are called a full noble knight, and so it seemeth by you. And wit you well that here shall never be said that I, Sir Darras, shall destroy such a noble knight as ye are in present, howbeit that ye have slain 3 of my sons, wherefore I was greatly aggrieved. But now shalt thou go and thy fellows, and take your horse and your armour, for they have been fire and clean kept. And ye shall go where it liketh you upon this covenant, that ye, knight, will promise me to be good friend to my sonnes 2 that been now on life, and also that ye tell me thy name. Sir, as for me, my name is Sir Tristram de Lyonesse, and in Cornwall was I born, and nephew I am unto King Marke. And as for the death of your 2 sons, we seem to have lost count of the number of sons this dude had. It was 5 before and 3 dead. Either Tristram's making a mistake or Malory is here. I'm not sure who's failed to count the noses. Anyway, here we go. Sorry. And as for the death of your 2 or perhaps 3 sons, I meek not do withal. For an they had been the next kin that I have, I meeked have done none otherwise. And if I had slain him by treason or treachery, I had been worthy to have died. All this I consider, sighed Sir Darras, and all that ye did was by force of knighthood, and that was the cause I would not put you to death. But sith ye be Sir Tristram the good knight, I pray you heartily to be good friend unto my sons. Sir, said Sir Tristram, I promise you by the faith of my body, ever while I will do you service, for ye have done us but as a natural knight ought to do. All right, so Darlene, are you suggesting what Sir Darras has 1d4 plus 1 sons? Anyway, sorry. Okay, so notice how understanding everybody is. There are a few things here that I think are important to notice. First of all, notice how Sir Darras is essentially contextualizing not only his release of Tristram, but his imprisonment of Tristram, right? He's saying, I locked you in prison, right, because I was greatly aggrieved, right? that his first reaction to the news of his son's deaths was great grief. And so he was passionate in his grief, and in his passion, he took Tristram captive. But notice, not only does he refrain from murdering him in prison, right, from executing him in prison, as we saw last time, but he has fair and clean kept his horse and his armor. He seems to, after his initial grief, have always planned, eventually, to release Sir Tristram, on condition only that he swear to be friends to his two surviving sons, right? He does the opposite of holding a grudge. And notice how understanding the both of them are, right? It would be easy to think, or, easy to say that that either Tristram or Sir Darras could very easily hold a grudge. I mean, Tristram killed 3 of Sir Darras' sons. We've seen people go after and lay ambushes to murder folks for less reason, though, for only the killing of a single relative, right, rather than 3. And yet Sir Darras understands, right? When Tristram says, had they been my next of kin, right? Had they been the closest one, I couldn't have done otherwise, right? He's saying, look, it's a contact sport, this is what it means to joust. This is what it means to be in this world in the first place, right? This is a tough life. People die. And Tristram says, look, it was, in the tournament, I couldn't have acted differently. I didn't intend to kill your sons, right? They, were killed by mishap in the joust. This kind of thing happens all the time. Notice also, we've seen Lancelot be equally unapologetic, right? As long as he didn't murder anybody, right? I mean, if somebody dies in clean jousts, right? It's unfortunate, but it happens. Again, contact sport, right? I mean, you got to sign the waiver first before you do this. You don't just go out and attack people with deadly weapons and not realize that somebody can get hurt. So, Tristram says, look, I didn't do anything wrong. If I had slain him by treason or treachery, I would have been worthy to have died, right? Then, you should have killed me. You would have been right to kill me. Had I murdered them, had I done some, had I, stabbed them in the back, or, ganged up with a bunch of other people just with the intention of slaughtering them, if I, decapitated them when they were begging for mercy, anything like that, right? If I'd done any of those things, then yeah, absolutely, you would be right to kill me. And notice, so Darras accepts that. All this I consider, right? That all ye did was by force of knichthood, right? Sir Darras also understands that this is a contact sport, right? Catriona, exactly. The probability of death, it's an occupational hazard, right? Everybody, all good knights undertake that, undertake this life with the knowledge that they could very well die, even in a friendly combat, right? Even in a tournament of this kind. Exactly, Carito. Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who. That's exactly it. And by the way, see again, Carita, isn't just another example, right, of another line in that movie, which is so much funnier after you've read Malory, right? And you see people having that conversation quite earnestly, right? Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who. But anyway, yeah, and the deal about the remaining sons, right, is it might seem counterintuitive, right? But what Sir Darras does, he responds in exactly the right, he responds in all the right ways. He shows the proper amount, he shows an understandable amount of harshness towards Tristram upon finding that this is the guy who killed his 3 sons in the tournament, but then he shows an appropriate level of mercy, understanding that he didn't actually do anything wrong, right? This stuff happens, and it's a shame, but it's just the way things go when your sons set out to be knights. And But that promise, right? Be a friend to my two surviving sons. In a sense, Sir Darras, I mean, it's not like he comes out a net winner. I'm not trying to suggest that his 3 dead sons don't mean anything, even if there are only 2 of them. But rather, he does get good, draw good, rather than drawing, emerging from this with Sir Tristram as his enemy for life, whom he's sworn to slay however he can, or something like that, which we've seen happen before. Instead, he emerges in quite the opposite direction, right? Now Sir Tristram is a friend of his house and has sworn to help and support his 2 surviving sons, right? So now he has one of the 2 greatest knights in the land as like the patron and protector of his sons. That's a great outcome, a really great outcome from this. And look how patient Tristram is. Tristram is not upset, right? Okay, you held me in prison. In your prison, I got sick and almost died. Like, he could be kind of upset about how he's been treated by Sir Darras, especially since he was Sir Darras's guest at the time, right, when he was imprisoned. He could be calling him, a traitor knight and all of these things. It's, he could make that accusation, but he doesn't, right? Ye have done to us but as a natural knight ought to do, right? He's not trying to say that it was exemplary, Sir Darras's behavior, but it was totally understandable, right? Any natural knight would feel that way, right? I totally get it, man. I killed your 3 sons, and that's awful. I'd be upset too if it were me, right? Okay, all right. Let's get so Sir Darras is a good egg. One of the other things that we get here, and this is going to be a theme that we're going to see throughout tonight's long reading section, is in some ways I think the lines between the good knights and the bad knights begins to come clearer and clearer. That doesn't mean that the good knights becoming more and more perfect. Tristram still has his issues, right? Lancelot has some issues still, right? Lamorak has some issues still. Palamides has his issues, right? All of the greatest knights still have problems. It's not that they're becoming simpler and simpler, sort of more and more one-dimensional characters. But the bad guys are becoming clearer, right? We are getting a more and more clear examples of the bad sort of knights and seeing them act more and more. First with King Mark, of course, right? We have the adventures of the bad king and the bad murderous knight, who is King Mark. And then, of course, we're going to be escalating towards Sir Gawain and his brothers, right? As they go completely off the rails. And Sir Bruce sans pitié running around, like literally running around, both on foot and on horseback, always escaping, always doing horrible things, and hoping he's going to get away with it. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. So this is Sir Tristram in the house of Morgan Le Fay, where he has ended up, unbeknownst to himself, and she's going to let him go. Remember, she was laying traps for him. She wanted to snag Sir Tristram earlier on, but she's going to let him go. And all she asks is, it's very reasonable, right? She gives him a shiny new shield and says, I'll let you go if you bear this shield at this next tournament that you're going to go to. That's all. What could go wrong, right? Madam, sighed Sir Tristram, let me see the shield that I shall bear. Then the shield was brought forth, and the field was gules, with a king and a queen therein painted, and a knight standing above them, with his own foot standing upon the king's head, and the other upon the queen's head. Madam, sighed Sir Tristram, this is a fair shield and a mighty, but what signifieth this king and this queen, and that knight standing upon both their heads? I shall tell you, sighed Morgan Le Fay. It signifieth King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, and a knight that holdeth them both in bondage and in servage. Madam, how is that knecht? sighed Sir Tristram. Sir, that shall ye not wit, as at this time, said the queen. But, as the French book sighed, unfortunately the French book is going to leave us in suspense as to who that knight might be. But as the French book sighed, Queen Morgan loved Sir Lancelot best, and ever she desired him, and he would never love her, nor do nothing at her request. And therefore she held many knechtes together to have taken him by strength, and because that she deemed that Sir Lancelot loved Queen Guinevere paramour, and she him again, therefore Dame Morgan ordained that shield to put Sir Lancelot to a rebuke, and to that intent, that King Arthur might understand the love between them. Okay. So, yeah, Karina Morgan is both conniving and also surprisingly open about her intentions. I love the gloss, right? How she almost explains the shield to Tristram, and Tristram's naivete is kind of classic here, right? Who is that knight? Who could that possibly be? I can't understand that, right? Like, who does he think it is? I don't know if Tristram is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, or if, or what is he? Is he not the stoutest lance on the rack? I'm not quite sure what metaphor to use here. But anyway, it seems a little transparent, but that's okay. A couple things that I would emphasize here, right? First of all, notice the particular symbolism involved, right? When she glosses the shield, well, let me put this a different way. Think about what the shield does not depict, right? It does not depict, like, there are a lot of ways she could have gone when designing this particular shield, right? If she wanted to do a tell-all shield, right? She could have depicted, like, a knight and a queen in bed while the king stands nearby, like, looking out a window or something. Like, she could have been a little more graphic, right? She could have even just, like, shown the two of them kissing or something like that. Like, it could have been about their love explicitly, but that's not what the shield is about, right? The shield is about the relationship that the knight has, sort of the supremacy that the knight holds over the two of them. His foot standing, one foot on each one of their heads. And notice that's what she emphasizes when she explains it, right? A knecht that holdeth them both in bondage and in servage, right? He's keeping them in captivity and in slavery, right? Wow. Okay, so that's different. So the message of the shield, in short, is not, hey, Arthur, Lancelot's sleeping with your wife, right? That's not the message. The message on the shield is, hey, Arthur, Lancelot's running your kingdom. Lancelot is dominating this realm, right? Lancelot is the one who really wears the pants in your kingdom, right? That is her message. And the relationship is one thing, right? That is Lancelot's inappropriate relationship, or at least this is Morgan's accusation, right? That Lancelot's relationship with Guinevere is inappropriate. That, of course, obviously, again, we go on to say that she's going to put Lancelot to a rebuke, to that intent that King Arthur might understand the love between them. So we do get that, right? But it's not just that. That's not, again, it's not, that is not the primary message of what the shield actually depicts. And it's interesting. I can't help but think, yeah, Mike, exactly. It's a comment on oppression. Absolutely. Yeah, Jennifer says, it seems like a rather dangerous shield for any knight to be wearing in court. Yeah, I mean, Jennifer, you're right. I think that the possibility of this shield being misunderstood is pretty significant, right? I mean, the odds are pretty high. I mean, if you're a knight coming in bearing this shield, it's like, what? Are you trying to say that's you, right? I'm the boss of both Arthur and Guinevere, right? I'm at the top of the heap. That would seem like a dubious, certainly, message to be attempting to deliver, and certainly very possible, at the very least, that they might think that. Yeah. Right. Rachel is wondering if Arthur might not find the possibility of usurpation actually more threatening, right? Than merely, some kind of accusation of inappropriate love between Lancelot and his queen. But of course, what Morgan is doing is one step more subtle than that. She's not just trying to out Lancelot and Guinevere. She is doing that, but she is also showing the next step down the road, right? If Lancelot is having an inappropriate relationship with the queen, wake up, Arthur. This is a political situation, right? There is a reason why sleeping with the queen is treason, not just in the sense in which Malory so often uses that word, but in the modern sense of the word treason, right? Because it calls the whole succession into doubt, right? If the queen is not faithful to the king, then you don't know whose her kids are, and you open up the whole possibility of the realm being taken away and thrown into civil war and all. This is why, although it seems harsh and a double standard, this is why a queen who commits adultery is executed. Like, that is a capital offense by the queen, because of the political ramifications. Anyhow, so, and we looked at this a little bit before, right? Remember our conversation about this at the end of the story of Sir Lacote Baltail, when we saw Lancelot acting as the upper end of the feudal food chain, right? We're seeing all of these knights and all of their vassals who are holding their lands and their loyalties from Lancelot, not from Arthur directly, and only from Arthur inasmuch as Lancelot himself is submitting to Arthur. So again, I do think that the message that she's trying to convey through this shield is both more all-encompassing and also more subtle than merely, Lancelot and Guinevere sitting in a tree, right? And she's not totally wrong, right? The possibility for this absolutely does exist. The other thing that I would emphasize, and I've been trying to emphasize this all along, especially since that passage that we were looking at a long time back when, Lancelot was describing his, principles of sexual morality. I want to draw your attention to the technical vocabulary that is being used in this paragraph. Because that she deemed that Sir Lancelot loved Queen Guinevere paramour, and she him again. Therefore, Dame Morgan ordained that shield. Because she deemed, because she believed, she thought. Notice, she doesn't know, she doesn't have evidence. She deems that Sir Lancelot loves Guinevere paramour, right? Paramour, that's important, right? That's the courtly love word. If you love someone paramour, remember that's exactly the language that Lancelot used. That's what he said he's not into, right? He didn't want to be married, right? He was opting to remain single, so he could stay in the full-time tournament circuit and everything, continue being a knight errant full-time, not have to settle down, mind the castle, all that kind of thing. But also, he explicitly rejected, specifically, loving paramours, right? Getting involved in these illicit sexual relationships, exactly like we saw Lancelot or Tristram carrying on not only with La Belle Isoud but with Sir Segwarides' wife, right? By the way, did you catch that passage in the King Mark section where Palamides was mentioned Sir Segwarides and mentioned that he was also a Saracen, right? He was sort of listing other Saracen knights that were around, and he mentioned Sir Segwarides, right? There's Sir Palamides' brother, Sir Saphir, whom he's referred to several times before as also a really great knight like he is. Sir Palamides considers his brother a greater knight than he is. But Sir Segwarides gets mentioned. So Sir Segwarides, whose wife Tristram sleeps with, you remember Sir Segwarides from way back, turns out is also a Saracen, right? So that's kind of interesting. That was not mentioned at the time. But anyhow, okay. So... oh yeah. So again, to me, the two words that I would draw attention to in that sentence that I had just reread there from that last paragraph is first paramour, right? Does Lancelot love Guinevere paramour? Because that's all that matters. Does Lancelot love Guinevere? Sure. Yeah. And he confesses that openly, and there's nothing wrong with that. And Arthur knows that. Arthur fully approves of that. Why wouldn't he? Right? Lancelot is Guinevere's champion. Lancelot loves Guinevere. It's fine. Everything. When Guinevere loves him, it's all good. Unless they love each other paramours, right? If they're sleeping together, it's a problem, right? If that's it. I mean, if they're sleeping together, it's a problem. If they are attached to each other emotionally, who cares? That's not a problem. King Arthur's not going to be bothered by that. The only question is if they love each other, if he loves her paramour and she him again, because that's when things get dicey, right? So the first important word is paramour. The second important word is deemed, right? She doesn't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Many people speculate, but remember, one of the things that we saw from the moment that Lancelot explained his moral code there, right? What we saw explicitly, what Lancelot himself acknowledges is that his moral code is countercultural. It's not how most people think, and therefore most people look at Lancelot and Guinevere and say, well, obviously, right? That's, I know loving paramours when I see it, and that's it, right? Like, clearly, but they're judging them by their own standards. Lancelot says, no, that's not how it is with me and Guinevere. Not at all, right? One thing that I have found many, many times, modern readers seem very unwilling to believe that that's even what Lancelot is shooting for, right? My students, I remember, my undergrads back in the old days, when we would get to these, to this kind of thing, would all start rolling their eyes, be like, oh, sure, yeah, right, yeah, pure love, Lancelot, right? Yeah, we all know how that goes. Careful with the we all know thing, right? Exactly how Malory is setting, explicitly how Malory is setting Lancelot up is as someone who is different, someone who's setting out to be different. Is he going to succeed? No, he's not going to completely succeed. But if we simply disbelieve his sincerity completely from the beginning, right? If we think this is all, if we conclude for some reason, just from our own point of view, right, that Lancelot is insincere, we have no evidence to believe that Lancelot is insincere, right? Apart from the fact that many other people seem skeptical because they are, but we see the differences, right? The text draws our attention to the ways in which other people aren't trying to do this, but Lancelot is, right? So we have to be careful with that. Okay. Yeah. Karita, I agree. To me, this is the benefit. There's a payoff that you get from giving Lancelot and Guinevere the benefit of the doubt, right? And that is exactly as Karita was just saying. If you believe that he really means what he says, it makes the whole thing so much more sad, right? Yeah, it's a much better story. If we just assume that whole thing is just nonsense from the beginning, it's not a tragedy anymore. It's barely even interesting, in fact. It just becomes a story of when will King Arthur finally wake up and smell the coffee, right? Finally notice what has been glaringly obvious to absolutely everyone except him, right? Notice again the emphasis in that last sentence, at the end of that sentence, I should say. To that intent that King Arthur meeked understand the love between them. Not recognize or realize the love, but the point is not that Arthur's going to be like, what? Lancelot and Guinevere love each other? Holy cow, I never knew, right? That's not the point. That he might understand it, right? What she wants, what Morgan Le Fay is going for, is Arthur to be like, wait a second. Maybe they love each other paramours, right? I thought that this was all legit. Maybe they're actually carrying on behind my back, right? Maybe they're sleeping together. That is the thing which Arthur is not thinking. And so far, we have every reason to believe that he's right not to be thinking it. Okay. My restraint. I've skipped over another Tristram and Palamides scene. There's more that could be done there, but we have the moment where Tristram saved Sir Palamides' life again, right? And notice a remarkable thing. He recognizes Palamides in his armor, right? The two of them are getting to know each other pretty well. So he sees Sir Palamides fighting 1-on-9, right? As Sir Bruce Sans Pité and his posse, he's gotten together a posse on this occasion, are trying to murder Sir Palamides, and Sir Tristram comes and breaks it up, and Sir Bruce has that walk away, kid, and mind your own business, and Tristram comes in and saves Palamides' life, and Palamides knows that he saved his life. Tristram reveals his name, and they want to fight each other, right? But Palamides is like, I can't, A, because I'm injured, and B, you did kind of just save my life. And I feel a little awkward about that, right? Once again, Tristram rescuing Palamides, and he knew who he was, right? Even though he later in that same scene tells Palamides that he's the knight in the world that he hates, that he, Palamides, is the knight in the world that he, Sir Tristram, hates most. Yet, Sir Tristram knew who Sir Palamides was when he comes in and rescues him. Or he doesn't rescue him by accident. So once again, we can see this sort of the frenemy bromance that, to use two modern portmanteau words, continues here between Tristram and Palamides. In the end, of course, the two of them make a date. It's like a play date, except different. That they're going to meet at the tomb near Camelot, the famous tomb near Camelot, and they're going to fight each other, right? And you may remember that tomb is the place where the famous fight was prophesied by Merlin to happen. And in case you've forgotten it, Malory is going to remind you. And Sir Tristram rode straight to Camelot, to that perron that Merlin had made to fore, where Sir Lancelot, that was the king's son of Ireland, was slain by the Hondas of Sir Balin, and in the same place was the fair laddie Columb slain, that was love unto Sir Lancelot, for after he was dead, she took his sword and thrust it through her body. And so by the craft of Merlin, he made to inter this knecht Lancelot and his laddie Columb under on stone. And at that time Merlin prophesied that in that same place should ficht twa the best knechtes that ever were in King Arthur's days, and twa of the best lovers. So, when Sir Tristram come to the tomb of stone, he looked about him after Sir Palamides. Then was he where come a samely knecht riding against him, all in white, and the covered shield. When he come nigh Sir Tristram, he said on hicht, that is, Sir Tristram is the one saying on hicht, Ye be welcome, Sir Knecht, and well and truly have ye holden your promise. Okay, so Nancy, I don't think we did know her name before. Colombe. Was she named? I think she was just the Lottie at that point. And I think she is Lady Colombe as in a dove. Yes. Nancy, I agree. That is a sort of a fascinating moment here as we're recalling the scene and in fact getting what I think is new. I don't remember. Somebody look back and find it. But yeah. Bruce, if my name were Bruce, I would totally adopt Sir Bruce Sans Pité as like a screen name or something in particular, as you suggest, if you are a teacher with your students. It's a really great nickname, I think, for a school teacher, definitely, especially come exam time. But anyway, okay. Couple things here, right? Think about the context of this fight. Tristram obviously thinks that it is Sir Palamides coming. Why shouldn't he? Right? He's made an appointment with Sir Palamides, and he the knight shows up. Right? He's kind of in disguise, right? But whatever, it's all cool. People do that sometimes. So he still thinks that this is Palamides coming to fight him. Right? Well and truly, have ye holden your promise? Says Tristram, showing he thinks it's Palamides. Right? Of course, it turns out it's Lancelot. But notice, why here? Why did they make their date here? It's one of the things that it's never stated in this scene. But I don't think that this is an accident. I don't think it's just a coincidence either. This stone is well known, right? When it's clear when Tristram suggests it as their meeting place, that both he and Sir Palamides know full well about this famous stone, right? And do they think that they're gonna, like, in fighting, make it come true? I don't know, this is the spot that was prophesied to be the place where the greatest battle ever happened, right? Does Tristram choose it because he thinks it's the fitting place for what I think both of them are hoping to be like the final showdown between Tristram and Palamides, right? After all this time, after all the fighting they've already done, after the number of times that Sir Tristram has already mopped the floor with Sir Palamides, they're finally going to come back for the one big heavyweight bout, and they're going to hold it at the stone where was prophesied will be the greatest fight between two knights that will ever be seen in Logres, right? So again, I don't think that that's a coincidence. And of course, Sir Tristram kind of thinks that the prophecy is being fulfilled, maybe? I don't know. But of course, the prophecy is being fulfilled, and it's Lancelot, though, so he doesn't understand it. No, so Arthur, I'm not suggesting that Tristram is Earendel. My subtitle, which I couldn't resist, the looked for that cometh at unawares. It's not that Tristram is Earendel. It's in a sense, of course, it's the fight itself. Like the duel between Tristram and Lancelot is the thing that was looked for, right, by Merlin, which he already carved in gold letters on this rock a long time ago. But of course, it's unexpected, right? Because Tristram doesn't know that it's Lancelot. So they're having this fight without realizing that they are having this fight. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if people think... Now, as I recall, usually Merlin is extremely explicit. As I recall, the actual text on the rock names Lancelot and Tristram, doesn't it? But again, it seems to me non-coincidental. So, Zach, I don't know if it's necessarily a question of trying to, like, prove the prophecy true in themselves, necessarily, that would make this a popular spot for duels, but just sort of by association, like, this is the place of great duels, right? So, okay, it seems a fitting spot for Tristram and Palamides finally to have it out. James Stevens is also imagining that this might have been a very popular kind of dueling spot in that way. Stephen, of course, points out that nobody actually listens to Merlin anyway, so the fact that Tristram and Lancelot are named could even, of course, be overlooked by people who don't really read the fine print, or possibly are not even literate at all, as we've talked about before. Okay. Oop. All right. The result, of course, at the end of the battle, after the two of them half kill each other, is that they then reveal their names, and both of them kneel and present their swords to the other, each one stumbling over himself in order to yield to the other, and in the end, Lancelot brings him triumphantly by love and not by force to the court. So Tristram comes to the court, but he does not come a prisoner, right? He does not come in order to be brought as a defeated knight to be presented before Arthur, but rather as a friend. And indeed as the fulfillment of Lancelot's quest, right? Lancelot took an oath to seek for Sir Tristram, and he finally has achieved it. Okay. So here's Tristram coming into the court and being heartily welcomed. Then King Arthur took Sir Tristram by the hand and went to the Table Round. Then come Queen Guinevere, and many laddies with her, and all those laddies sighed at own voice, Welcome, Sir Tristram! Welcome, sighed the damosels. Welcome, sighed King Arthur, for one of the best knightes and the gentlest of the world, and the man of most worship. For of all manner of hunting thou bearest the price, and of all measures of blowing thou art the beginning. Of all the termes of hunting and hawking ye are the beginner. Of all instruments of music ye are the best. Therefore, gentle knight, said King Arthur, ye are welcome to this court. And also, I pray you, sighed King Arthur, grant me a down. Sir, it shall be at your commandment, said Sir Tristram rashly. Well, sighed King Arthur, I will desire that ye shall abide in my court. Sir, said Tristram, thereto me is loth, for I have to do in many countries. Not so, said King Arthur. Ye have promised me, ye may not say nay. Sir, said Sir Tristram, I will as ye will. Then went King Arthur unto the sages about the Round Table, and looked on every siege which were void that lacked knightes. And then the king see in the siege of Sir Marhault letters that said, This is the siege of the noble knight Sir Tristramus. And then King Arthur made Sir Tristram a knight of the Round Table, with great noblesse and a feast, as might be thought. Jennifer says Arthur has learned well the old unconditional promise trick. Yeah, exactly. He can. We don't usually see King Arthur himself deploying that against others, right? Interesting that he caught Sir Tristram on the hop there under those circumstances to give him an unqualified gift, right? David, you are right that usually on the first meeting it's the visiting knight who asks a favor of the king rather than the other way around, right? We saw that both with Sir Lacote Maltile and with Sir Gareth, right? When they were new come to the court, they would ask a boon, a don, a gift of the king. So it is true, Arthur is pointedly reversing this, and I suspect, Jennifer, that it's part of the surprise of that, part of the Sir Tristram is kind of caught flat-footed by Arthur's reversal of the custom there, that, you know, when the king, at your first meeting with the king, asks you for a boon, right, what do? Right? You say yes. Sure, it shall be at your commandment. Anything you ask, king, and then he's got you, right? Yeah. Now, as for Sir Marhault, Arthur, it's not that Sir Marhault was a seat warmer, exactly. Rather that Tristram is his heir, right? You know, Tristram does take Sir Marhault's place. That's no insult meant to Sir Marhault, right? It might seem a little Darwinian, perhaps, right? That like you kill a knight and you get his seat on the Round Table. Yeah, Marhalt is dead. Remember, Deborah, Marhalt is the one who took Tristram's own sword in the brain with the true edge, right? With Cornwall in Ireland, way back at the beginning. I mean, it was a long time ago now. But yeah. Right. The one we got the whole forensics thing where they extracted the piece of sword from his brain and his mom kept it in a box. Oh, yeah. Good times. Anyway, yeah, anyhow, it's so in one sense, as I say, it seems maybe a little cutthroat, maybe a little survival of the fittest to take poor Sir Marhalt's seat, and that like the friends and kin of Sir Marhalt might not be best pleased that the guy who killed him ends up getting his chair. But there's another sense in which it is perfectly fitting, right? And I wouldn't actually think that Sir Marhalt would probably object very much, actually. It's fitting, right, that Tristram should take his seat. Tristram has displaced him. Remember, it's all about, proving. You remember that to be a knight proved, right? Tristram's defeat of Marhalt was the moment when he proved himself as a knight, right? It is fitting, right? Just as it's fitting, and the Red Knight of the Red Lawns, becomes a reformed character, as C.S. Lewis might say, after he's defeated by Sir Gareth, right, and becomes his vassal and a well-adjusted individual who becomes a Knight of the Round Table and everything's fine, right? Now he survives it, right? And again, just like the three sons of Sir Darras at the beginning, Sir Tristram didn't murder Sir Marhalt, right? He defeated him in clean battle, and Sir Marhalt died, and he would have killed Sir Tristram, and it was all fair. Anyway, so it all works. So Deborah, yeah, we get the sense here that at first it seemed that Merlin was just taking his golden Sharpie and writing the names of the knight of the current. He writes King Pellinor right on the back of King Pellinor's seat and stuff. No, apparently it's cooler than that, right? What Merlin did with his magic ink here is cooler, that they're self-labeling seats, right? So Arthur doesn't elevate Sir Tristram to the Round Table, right? The Round Table invites Sir Tristram, right? Or rather, Arthur himself finds. Notice Arthur initiates this ritual, right? At the very beginning, there was this sense of election, right? Remember the debate between whether Sir Tor or Sir Bagdemagus was going to be accepted as a Knight of the Round Table when four of the other knights, the older knights, were killed, right? And so they were getting replacements. That's when Sir Gawain got on. That's when Sir Griflet got on. And then it was going to be either Sir Bagdemagus or Sir Tor, and it ended up being Sir Tor. You didn't see anybody consulting the chairs at that point, right? The sort of mythos of the Round Table has changed, has developed now over time. And now notice it's not a question of Arthur choosing who he's going to take as a Knight of the Round Table. He goes to the chairs and he looks. So Arthur himself just goes and walks around the seats and looks to see. He's trying to discover whether or not Sir Tristram is a Knight of the Round Table. And he finds that he is. There he is. What used to say the seat of Sir Marhalt, which has been presumably empty this whole time, because it still had Marhalt's name on it. Marhalt's dead now, right? So you don't put somebody in Sir Marhalt's seat until the name changes on the back, right? Brian, exactly. It's like an early version of the Sorting Hat. It's kind of like that. Carita says that just as the wand chooses the wizard, so the chair chooses the knight. Yeah, exactly. That's just exactly it. But yeah, so it is ordained, right? It is destined that it's again, whether no matter what Arthur's opinion of it might be, Sir Tristram is a Knight of the Round Table. Now, Carita, as to the sort of the political situation, it's a little bit complicated. Is he still affiliated with King Mark? Is Tristram still affiliated with King Mark? Has he changed his allegiances? Can you swear to more than one king at once? Apparently, yes. He can become a knight of the Round Table. He can become a knight of King Arthur's court and yet remain a knight of King Mark's court as well. That's particularly easy when the one king is a vassal of the other king, right? King Mark theoretically holds his lands from King Arthur and is under his umbrella, though he's not been very forthcoming and he's not been very friendly about this. But anyway, nevertheless, King Arthur definitely has rank over King Mark. If, somebody were sworn to, like King Rience, remember King Rience, the dude who made cloaks out of kings' beards, and sent the insulting message to Arthur way back at the beginning when Arthur's beard was still kind of scraggly because of his youth. You presumably couldn't swear to him and King Arthur both, right? That would not be okay. But in this sense, it's okay. Zach, you're right that Tristram is also exiled, or at least semi-exiled from Cornwall. I mean, there seems to be a kind of an on-again, off-again thing with King Mark and Tristram. King Mark doesn't seem wholly consistent on this point. But yeah, he's been kind of sent out. But remember, that's what brings King Mark out of his shell, right? What leads King Mark to do his little stint as a traveling errant knight here in this section is that he's afraid that Tristram is going to be getting more honor, right? And then, what he intended for a punishment, banishing Tristram from Cornwall, is going to end up being a benefit to him, right? And he hates the thought of that. Yeah. And Dollar Stroke, I agree with you that, thinking of, Dolly there is thinking of the Rock, again, Merlin's Rock, and, thinking how both Tristram and Lancelot are called two of the greatest lovers. They're also two of the greatest, home wreckers and kingdom wreckers as well. Yeah, it's hard not to read that sentence, that, Merlinic inscription, or Merlionic inscription, perhaps, Dolly, and not think to be the greatest lover means to be the greatest destroyer, right? I mean, it's, love is a problematic thing, right? It is almost never just a positive thing. In fact, the only time we've ever seen it be just an unequivocally positive thing is with like Sir Gareth and Lyonesse, right? Which, their adorable attempts to commit fornication and fail, and then finally getting married, right? So yeah, everything else, it's definitely trouble. Definitely trouble. Okay. One last thing here. The praise that Tristram gets here. We've seen this before, of course, the business about hunting and I know what he means by of all measures of blowing thou art the beginning. It kind of sounds like a vague insult that you would give to a lecturer, but maybe I'm just oversensitive on that point. Anyway, he's the gentlest of the world and the man of most worship. Most worship is a description of himself, but of course also a description of the respect that is accorded him by everybody around the world. The gentlest speaks of his birth, but of course he's not more gently born in that way. I mean, yes, he's of kings on father's side and mother's side, but that's could be said of many, right? So it doesn't mean gentlest in that way. The gentlest of his deeds. And that might seem strange, and I think Carita would object that Tristram is the gentlest knight that we've seen. But there's a dog that loves him, so, I guess he's got that going for him. The whole world seems to be Tristram's hype man, says Carita. I hear it. I hear you. It's true. Everybody loves Sir Tristram, no matter what. That's I mean, except Sir Palamides. And even he is conflicted on this point, you know. All right. When King Mark does set out, the very first thing that happens is that the very first thing that happens is he shows himself to be a murderer, right? As he up and bisects the head of one of his chief supporters whom he took with him to help him, right? Because what he sets out to do is to find, entrap and murder Tristram. And when his knight says, "I'm not into that," he puts his sword from his forehead down through to his teeth. And then the other knight that he brought along with him is going to go and appeal him of treason at King Arthur's court. Though for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why, Sir Amount, that other knight, agrees to do that without naming King Mark by name, which seems a strange concession for him to make. Yeah. Curtis says I'm not going to be drawn into liking Tristram just because a dog likes him. I know. No, I'm thinking of that old expression, which was a famous, a favorite expression of one of my former colleagues, who was wont to say, especially when frustrated with some of our other colleagues, there's no man so awful that he can't find a woman and a dog to love him. Anyway, yeah, so Tristram has both a woman and a dog who love him. So there he goes. Anyway, okay, so King Mark is here encountering with Sir Lamorak and Sir Dinadan. Sir Dinadan is traveling with Sir Lamorak now. And they meet with King Mark, and King Mark, Lamorak carries him clean out of his saddle. You get this sense of this quite spectacular fall that King Mark takes. He's not just like knocked off his saddle. He's like lifted out and borne over the back of his horse in the air on the tip of Lamorak's spear and dropped down. By the way, I really like one of the things that sort of emerged here, how Lamorak is the best jouster ever, right? You know, he's only the third best knight in the world. But everybody who sees him says Lamorak is the greatest jouster they've ever seen. On foot, right, with a sword, Tristram and Lancelot could both take him, right? But in horseback and with a lance, man, there's nobody like Lamorak, right? I think that's kind of cool. Anyway, okay. So, King Mark gets knocked out of his horse emphatically by Sir Lamorak, and he wants a second round with the sword. And so he followed and overtook him. That is, the first he is King Mark, and the second he is Sir Lamorak, and bade him abide. "What will ye do?" said Sir Lamorak. "Sir," he said, "I will fight with a sword, for ye have shamed me with a spear." Now, this is exactly how everybody talks. We've seen, how many knights have we seen do this kind of thing, right? And get all upset if they're not allowed to try to, make up for losing with the jousting, right? So, anyway, so here we go with King Mark being placed into the position of like every other knight that we've seen. King Mark establishing himself as a knight. We've looked at how King Arthur established himself as a knight, especially at the beginning, but even now occasionally he's still mixing it up, right? And although he's sometimes like he got knocked down by Tristram, right? But still, nevertheless, he does a pretty good job. He knocked Sir Palamides off his horse at one point, right? Anyway, so he's going to fight with Sir Lamorak, and we'll see how this goes. This is one of my favorite fight descriptions in all of Malory. "And therewith they dashed together with sweardes, and Sir Lamorak suffered him, and forbar him, and King Mark was passing busy, and smote thick strokes. Then Sir Lamorak saw he would not stint, he waxed somewhat wroth, and doubled his strokes, for he was of the noblest of the world. And he beat him so on the helm, that his head hang nigh on the saddle bow. When Sir Lamorak saw him far so, he sighed, 'Knecht, what cheer? Meseemeth ye have now your fill of fighting. It were pity to do you any more harm, for ye are but a mean knecht. Therefore I give you leave to go where ye list.'" "Gramercy," said King Mark, "for ye and I be no matches." Then Sir Dinadan mocked King Mark and sighed, "Ye are not able to match a good knecht." You're not a match for anybody. I love the description. We've seen unequal combats before and stuff, but the way that we as readers are invited to laugh at King Mark here is, I think, unique in any of the other descriptions that we've seen people humiliated, like the way that Sir Gareth humiliates Sir Kay, right? When Sir Kay comes after Beaumains to teach him a lesson at the beginning, and Sir Gareth takes him down, right? And like, what does he, break his leg or something? And he injures him, right, in some way. So we've seen unequal combats like that before. But this is totally different, right? Lamorak suffered him and forbar him, right? And you can see, Lamorak, like, just fighting, like, over here, like, not even paying attention, right? While King Mark is passing busy and smote thick strokes, right? So there he's hacking and slashing and he's making himself very big. But that's such a bad compliment, right? He was passing busy and smote thick strokes. He's really working at it, right? He's really going, and here's Lamorak, kind of having a conversation with Sir Dinadan while he's holding him off with one hand. And then he gets mad. Why does he get mad? Because he won't stop, right? He would not stint. He just kept flailing at him, right? So finally Lamorak is like, all right, I've had enough of this, right? So he doubles his strokes and beats him so on the helm that he knocks his head down onto his saddlebow and then says, "Knight, what cheer? So how you doing over there? It looks to me like you've had your fill, I think," right? The ease with, Sir Lamorak is one of the noblest of the world, as Malory reminds us. So, as Dinadan would be the very first to tell you, to lose to Sir Lamorak is no shame, right? However, King Mark is emphatically humiliated. Even his effort, his attempt to pass as a regular knight, to be accepted as a peer of these other knights, is we're invited to laugh at it, right? And Sir Dinadan, the satirist, can see it, right? You are not, Sir Lamorak says, you're but a mean knight, right? You're way out of your league, man, right? And that's Creed, I bet his horse is embarrassed too. This is Arthur sometimes gets beaten, but he can hold his own. King Mark cannot, right? He is a mean knight in more than one sense, right? He is a low knight, low in skill level, right? Not worthy to be in company with the great knights, with those who are noblest in the world. His skill points to he is a bad knight. Think of how often we hear he is a passing good knecht, right? And that's usually meant in more than one sense. Good in the sense of skilled, right, with his weapons, skilled in combat, but also good, right? Like he's a good knight. That guy's a good egg. He's deserving of worship. King Mark earns himself great disworship. He is bad at being a knight in all ways that you can be bad at being a knight, Karita. That's exactly it. So they start playing pranks on him. Sir Dinadan has already set this up, right? King Mark asked Sir Dinadan who was the leader of this group of 6 knights of King Arthur's that they met, and Sir Dinadan has already lied to him and told him that Sir Lancelot is the leader, and he chooses one of their shields and says, "Oh yeah, no, like that guy, that guy over there is Sir Lancelot, right? You can tell by his shield." So Sir Dinadan went from King Mark and went to his own fellowship. And so they mounted upon the horses and rode on their wise, and talked of the Cornish knecht, for Sir Dinadan told them that he was in the castle where they were lodged. It is well said, said Sir Griflet, for here have I brought Sir Dagonet, King Arthur's fool. That is the best fellow and the merriest in the world. Will ye then do well? sighed Sir Dinadan. I have told the Cornish knight that here is Sir Lancelot, and the Cornish knight asked me what shield he bar, and I told him that he bar the same shield that Sir Mordred beareth. Will ye do well? sighed Sir Mordred. I am hurt and may not well bear up my shield nor harness. Therefore put my harness and my shield upon Sir Dagonet, and let him set upon the Cornish knight. That shall be done, said Dagonet, be my faith. And so anon Sir Dagonet was armed in Sir Mordred's harness and his shield, and he was set on a great horse, and a spear in his hand. Now, said Sir Dagonet, set me to that knight, and I trow I shall bear him down. And of course King Mark sees him coming and runs away, and Sir Dagonet is chasing after him and hamming it up, right, and he's, bellowing after him, saying that he's going to chase him down and kill him. Great fun, right? Just hilarious. This is one of Dagonet's great moments. I love Sir Dagonet is really great. He had a hard time of it when he, as fool, met Tristram when Sir Tristram was running mad. Right, they had a madman fool interchange, right, which didn't really go exactly like it did in King Lear. But anyway, so he's coming to further humiliate the Cornish knight. Notice the overall shape of the joke. I mean, the joke is, it is kind of funny, right? And note how it originates with Sir Dinadan, and then Sir Griflet perks up and is like, hey, we've got Sir Dagonet here, right? He improves on the jest. But notice the shape of it, right? This is not just like some random practical joke on somebody, that they're using to kick somebody while he's down. The message here is kind of clear, right? Let us show the gap between good knights and bad knights. You see what the pageant that they're playing out, right? It's like Sir Dagonet is to King Mark as Sir Lancelot is to anybody else, right? When it comes to King Mark, Sir Dagonet might as well be Sir Lancelot, right? And the fact that they make that King Mark ends up running in fear away from King Arthur's fool, again, is, this very telling and very appropriate satire, right, on King Mark's status, both as a knight and, of course, in fact, like as a king, in his relative relationship with King Arthur as well, right? Karina's wondering, are they picking on him because he's an easy target, or is there a little Cornish knights or losers thing too? Yeah, there is a Cornish knights or losers thing too, but remember, there's also, especially for Sir Dinadan, Sir Dinadan has traveled with Tristram. At the beginning, back in the days when Sir Tristram first encountered with Sir Bleoberis and Sir Blamordeganus, you remember like when Sir Bleoberis comes to the court of Cornwall and, walks off with Sir Segwarides, his wife. Remember that? Back in those days when nobody in King Arthur's court knew Sir Tristram, the thing about Cornish knights was simply, Cornish knights suck, right? I mean, Cornish knights are terrible knights. And so, like they're barely even worth the notice. They're just not in the league combat-wise of Arthur's knights. Now, though, that's still out there. That clearly that association exists, though people now tactfully say the only Cornish knight who's worth anything is Sir Tristram. The rest of them are still losers. But there's another edge to it, too. And again, especially from Sir Dinadan. Sir Dinadan condemns Cornish folks for King Mark's sake, right? It's not just because they're not Sir Tristram. Like Sir Tristram alone stands out from among, he's the only Cornish knight worth taking seriously. That's kind of true, but it's not just that, right? Tristram has been banished from Cornwall, right? The Cornish court kicked him out. And so therefore, it's not just snobbishness now, right? It's not just being patronizing to Cornish knights in the modern sense. They are there is an air of condemnation now, right? Cornish knights are deserving of scorn because of how they treated Tristram, right? They rejected Tristram, the only knight of them who's worth anything, and they rejected him and cast him out. Especially, of course, with King Mark, obviously at the center of that. But I think in Dinadan's book, it seems fairly clear, others also bearing some responsibility for that. So I think it's not just a snobbish thing. I get that's still there. And I think with some knights more than others, it seems. But especially Sir Dinadan is... he's a pretty big Sir Tristram apologist, so there's definitely more to it than that. But of course, there's one other thing about the scene that we should notice, right? Anything else conspicuous about the scene? Anything else jump out at you? What does this scene tell us about Sir Lancelot? Yeah, he's the best knight. Yeah, everybody's afraid of him. He's got a huge reputation. That's all very clear. But whose shield does Dinadan choose? Whose shield? Mordred's, right? I told him that Sir Lancelot bar the sam shield that Sir Mordred beareth. He describes Mordred's shield, Mordred's coat of arms, and ascribed that to Lancelot. Now, Dinadan's just joking, right? It's no big deal. Maybe he even noticed that Mordred was... Maybe Dinadan is a smart guy, right? He's obviously fairly clever. So maybe he's thinking a couple steps ahead. Maybe he's already thinking, about dressing somebody up and whatever. I don't know. Maybe it was totally random. Maybe it was just by chance. And I don't think Sir Dinadan means anything by it. But we as readers can't help... I think we shouldn't help but notice it. It seems a little conspicuous. This is Mordred we're talking about, and we know Mordred's destiny. Merlin explained Mordred's destiny to us very clearly at the time, right? Mordred is the one who is going to cause the downfall of the Arthurian court. Mordred is the bad apple, right, who is going to rot the entire bushel. We know this is Mordred's destiny. And of all of the knights of the court, of all of the knights there, it's Mordred that is paralleled with Lancelot. And that's interesting. I think that's interesting, right? We get this slightly ominous piece of foreshadowing, right? Piece of dramatic irony. That Mordred should be the one chosen. That they should be kind of connected in some way. It's a very small point here, right? But of course, as we're going to see, despite Merlin's prophecies that Mordred is going to be the one to bring down Arthur's court, it's still kind of true. Mordred is going to be the one to, smite Arthur his deadly wound. Oop, spoilers, except wait, that's Merlin's job. But it's going to be Lancelot that's going to bring down Arthur's court, really. Were it not for Lancelot, Mordred would never be able to do what he's doing. So, that I thought was a really interesting sort of moment here. Okay, so, sir, the joke comes to a sudden and unexpected end, right? When King Mark comes upon Sir Palamides, who sees who sees this one knight being pursued by another knight who might be Bruce sans Pite for all he knows, right? So he goes to Sir Dagonet and, completely pastes poor Sir Dagonet, right? Who's suddenly much less, having much less fun all of a sudden. And then Sir Palamides unseats takes all 7 of them down in order, right? Joke over. And King Mark has, in a sense, the last laugh. Though, of course, the irony is essentially on Sir Palamides, who has just defended one of the people that he hates most in the world, right? King, Tristram he hates as a rival, but King Mark he despises, right? And he has just defended the life of the husband of the woman that he loves, right? Awkward. Anyway, Sir Palamides is now traveling with King Mark, and Sir Palamides sends King Mark's varlet to this. They come to this castle, and he sends the varlet in to get some foodstuffs. Right, he's going to get some supplies. Ask for supplies from this castle. Than the varlet went his way, and come to the manor and saluted the laddie, and told her from whence he come. And once she understood that he come for the knecht that followed the questing beast, which is how Palamides explained himself to the varlet. Ah, sweet Lord Jesu, she sighed, when shall I see that gentle knecht, my dear son, Sir Palamides? Alas, will he not abide with me? And therewith she swooned, and wept, and made passing great dole. But also soon as she meeked, she gaf the varlet meat, all that he axed. And then the varlet returned unto Sir Palamides, for he was a varlet of King Marke. And as soon as he come, he told the knecht his name was Sir Palamides. So, of course, Mark hadn't known who was the knight who had rescued him until his varlet tells him here. And in the meanwhile, we get this strange random moment where Sir Palamides comes to this castle, asks for supplies, and it turns out it's his mom who lives there, right? And who swoons dead away out of grief that her son, whom she hasn't seen in goodness knows how long, is like right outside and won't come. Will he not abide with me? He wants me to send him food out like into the field. He won't stay one night at his mom's place, right? Nancy, I have no idea what Sir Palamides' mom is doing here. Sir Palamides not visiting his mom, who seems, I don't know, she seems nice. I don't know why Sir Palamides, I don't know what the backstory is there. But yeah, like that she's here, I don't get. And Nancy, and yes, Dolores Stroke, both Tomas and Dolly are thinking the same thing. Like, what, sweet Lord Jesu? Really? So his mom's a Christian, apparently, and not a Saracen, right? She's not a Paynim the way that he is. So, adult convert, she's already converted to Christianity, I guess, right? Presumably, she's not a Christian woman who is, for some reason, raised her son as Saracen. I got it from his dad, Deborah. I have no idea. I mean, this moment does more to, like, throw more weirdness into Sir Palamides' backstory than any other. And I got to tell you, like in the Sir Palamides feature film, I'm going to have a hard time with this scene, right? It's going to, this one scene is going to, like this one paragraph is going to require tons and tons of backstory development in order to explain why on earth this happens. Anyway, maybe Palamides converted to Islam in as a teenage rebellion thing. No, but he wouldn't call himself a Saracen then. He might be a Paynim, but he wouldn't be a Saracen. I don't know, man. I don't even know. No idea. Can't explain this. but it was interesting. Okay. Now, another thing that's interesting about Palamides, you may be forgiven if you have almost forgotten that Sir Palamides' initial issue was that he was in love with La Belle Isoude, right? That came up once when he met up with Sir Cahydens and they got the Lonely Hearts Club thing going, and were both of them commiserating about how hot they loved La Belle Isoude. But anyway, that's apart from that, we haven't gotten too much on that, right? We've mostly had Sir Palamides fixated on Sir Tristram, not on La Belle Isoude. So it's interesting that we get this scene. Right so as Sir Dinadan rode in the evening lat, he heard a doleful noise, as it were of a man. Then Sir Dinadan rode toward that noise, and when he come nigh that noise, he leaped off his horse, and went near him on foot. Than was he ware of a knecht that stood under a tree, and his horse tied by him, and his helm off, and ever that knecht made a doleful complaint as ever made a knecht, and always he complained of La Belle Isoud, the Queen of Cornwall, and sighed, Ah, fire laddie, why love I thee? For thou art firest of all other, and as yet showedst thou never love to me, nother bounty. Pardie, and yet alas, must I love thee. And I may not blame thee, fair laddie, for mine eyen coused me. And yet to love thee I am but a fool, for the best knecht of the world loveth thee, and ye him again. That is Sir Tristram de Lyonesse. And the falsest knecht and king of the world is your husband, and the most coward and full of treason is your lord King Marke. And alas, so beauteous a laddie and perilous of all other should be matched with the most villainous knecht of the world. Sir Palamides had almost seemed to move on from La Belle Isoud, and like what mattered to him was really his rivalry with Tristram. That clearly does matter to him a very great deal. But it's interesting to be reminded that he's still in love with La Belle Isoud, and this is still a love issue for him. And to see him making a semi-typical lover's lament. If you look in Vinaver's notes on this passage at the end, he doesn't write a whole lot of notes, but he writes a little note on this passage, in which he says, here Malory is following his French source, but he points out that Malory has shortened it a great deal. That in the French source, which is much more focused on the courtly love angle, Palamides goes on for a long time, like you do. I mean, courtly lovers drone on almost incessantly about their beloveds and about their love and all that stuff. Anyway, so and this is something that you can see. I've been failing largely, but I've been trying not to talk too much about courtly love or use that phrase over much. I have to use it sometimes because it's plainly lurking in the background here, but Malory's work is not a courtly love work. It is at best a secondary interest in this story, right? Even as the knights talk about love a lot, they don't really do love talk the way that courtly love texts do love talk, where it's all about it, right? More talk and less action is the medieval courtly love story mode, right? And that's not what Malory is into. I think it's kind of a fun thing. But yes, I do love that fact, James and Nancy, that of course we have Sir Dinadan overhearing this lament, but also King Marke on the other side of the queering, right? Also listening in on this. Everyone's eavesdropping on Palamides here, and King Marke books it right as soon as he hears this. One of the things that Palamides laments is how horrible and inappropriate it is that so beauteous a lady and peerless of all other. The similarity between peerless and perilous is interesting, isn't it? Anyhow, so anyway, both of them are overhearing him. King Marke runs away. Sorry, I was getting back to, Deborah, your question. The most villainous knecht of the world. Villainous. Low, bad, immoral, wicked knight of the world. Villainous here would be like the opposite of... remember how King Arthur said that Tristram was the gentlest knecht of the world? Villainous would be like the logical opposite of gentlest. Marke and Tristram are absolute opposites of each other, and that's That's a theme here. No, exactly. Exactly. He is lamenting that so beauteous a lady should be matched with the most wicked knight in the world. That's just wrong. It's not that she's married. That wouldn't be a problem. I mean, necessarily. Everybody was fine with Sir Segwarides' wife, right? But yeah, that she should be married, like, it's horrible, right? And her boyfriend kicks my butt on the regular, so that's not so good either. We get to King Arthur's court. King Mark gets to King Arthur's court, and he has his trial by combat with Sir Amant. Right? Sir Amant appeals him anonymously of treason for murdering the other guy, which he totally did. Right? But Sir Amant loses. He's in the right, and he loses the trial by combat. Thon was there damosels that La Belle Isoud had sent unto Sir Tristram that knew Sir Amant well. Then by the license of King Arthur they went to him and spake with him, for while the truncheon of the spear stuck in his body he spake. Ah, fair damosels, said Sir Amant, recommend me unto La Belle Isoud, and tell her that I am slain for the love of her and of Sir Tristram. And there he told the damosels how cowardly King Mark had slain him, and Sir Percival his fellow. And for that deed I appealed him of treason, and here am I slain in a righteous quarrel. And all was because Sir Percival and I would not consent by treason to slay the noble knight Sir Tristram. Then the 12 maidens cried aloud, that all the court might hear, and sighed, Ah, sweet Jesu, that knowest all hid things, why sufferest thou so false a traitor to vanquish and slay a true knight that fought in a righteous quarrel? This is a theological problem. Right now, remember, I said before, the church has condemned trial by combat from the beginning, right? We can see in their outcry the logic behind trial by combat, right? God knows all hidden things, right? God knows the truth of a cause. When two people are quarreling, God knows who's in the right and who's in the wrong, right? And so, since God knows what's in the right, surely he will make sure that justice is done and that the person who's in the right wins. It's a very simple line of thinking, right? But the church's problem was always the second. The first step is fine. Does God know who's right and who's wrong? Yes, God knows who's right and who's wrong. The second step is the problem, right? You cannot assume that God is going to make it turn out so that the truth is revealed in that moment, right? As they said, to do that is to Jesus says to Satan in the temptation in the wilderness, thou shalt not test the Lord thy God. That's exactly the text that the church quoted when they were condemning the practice of judicial combat. We've seen people practicing it nevertheless, right? It's obviously standard in this world that we're reading here, but it's important for us to notice there's not a whole lot riding on this trial, right? King Mark's not actually going to get away, nor is anybody going to emerge from this with the false impression that he's really an upstanding guy. So, apart from Sir Amant, who dies, there's no real consequences to this. And yet, Malory has created this situation, has sort of planted this seed. You know what? Judicial combats don't always play out. We see that there is still a very general belief in judicial combat among the characters of this story, but that doesn't mean that judicial combat actually works all the time in this text. And Malory has given us a prominent example in which he goes way out of his way to emphasize Sir Amant was in a righteous quarrel and nevertheless he lost and died. That happens, and this whole system is very dubious. One of the clear consequences. This is going to be important later. All right. This is a really minor scene, but this was classic Sir Dinadan. I just loved this. So on the morn, Sir Dinadan rode unto the court of King Arthur. He's on his own now. And by the way,
As he rode, he saw where stood an arrant knight, and made him ready for to just. Not so, said Sir Dinadan, for I have no will to just. With me shall ye just, said the knight, or that ye pass this way. Sir, whether ask you justice of love, other of hat? The knight answered and sighed, Wit you well, I ask it for love, not of hat. It may well be, sighed Sir Dinadan, but ye proffer me hard love when ye will just with me with an hard spear. But fair knight, said Sir Dinadan, sithen ye will just with me, meet with me in the court of King Arthur, and there I shall just with you. Well, said the knight, sithen ye will not just with me, I pray you tell me your name. Sir Knight, my name is Sir Dinadan. Ah, sir, said the knight, full well know I you for a good knight and a gentle, and wit you well, sir, I love you heartily. Then shall there be no justice, said Sir Dinadan, betwixt us. So they departed. I just love the way David says Sir Dinadan, the Socrates of Camelot. Yeah. This is absolutely fantastic, right? Here we see Sir Dinadan. Karina, I am sure this is meant to be funny. There are, I mean, we have to wonder, right? Sometimes we're amused by things that, you know, maybe Malory was perfectly serious about. Sir Dinadan is not one of those things, right? Sir Dinadan is hilarious. And I think that Malory finds Sir Dinadan hilarious. And I think it's very interesting that Malory seems to find Sir Dinadan's, at the very least, deviation from the knightly code, at times satire of the knightly code, actually, that he seems to find that funny, right? It's very tempting sometimes to see Sir Thomas Malory is a very serious, very earnest, especially about knighthood, right? He's not going to mess around with knighthood, except he does mess around with knighthood, right? Enter Sir Dinadan, who is always going around, you know, plucking the bubbles, right, of other knights, you know, calling a spade and accusing Sir Tristram of being a madman when he wants to go and attack 30 people on his own. The way that he talks his way out of this situation, and we never even learn who this other knight is, right? It doesn't matter. This is just Sir Dinadan performing here. It's it's really, really wonderful. But you'll notice one of the other sort of consequences here, right? How counterintuitive it is. The strange knight first meets Sir Dinadan, and his first impulse is to say, "Before you pass, you must joust with me." And Sir Dinadan's like, "No, really, I don't want to," right? In the end, the knight comes to the point where he asks Sir Dinadan what his name is, and Sir Dinadan tells him, and at which point he discovers, "Oh, I don't want to fight you. I would never want to hurt you. I think you're great," right? What Sir Dinadan does not say explicitly, but seems to imply, is, "Hey, Stoop, why didn't you ask me that question in the first place?" Right? What kind of sense does it make to live in a world where our first step is to fight each other and then find out who we are second, right? When, upon finding out who I am, you realize you didn't actually want to fight me in the first place. Well, what if we just fought and then you'd found out after I was dead or something, right? Again, Sir Dinadan, through his questions, through his actions, seems to not exactly turn the whole system on its head, but call it into question in some serious way. Like, people, can we please put a little common sense into this, right? That's kind of Sir Dinadan's whole approach, the way that he sort of takes this, at times, sort of exaggerated, I think even within the context of this world, exaggerated ethos, right? And say, come on, hang on, people. Surely we can find a better way than this. Dolly says he really thought the knight was going to insist on the joust when he heard Sir Dinadan's name. Yeah, that's the thing, Dolly, that I'm suggesting that surprises me most, right? Is that it's not just surprising that Sir Dinadan would voice this. It's that Malory like goes along with him, right? Malory makes it work out that Sir Dinadan is in the right to question what he's questioning, right? And that's I think pretty cool. Okay. So this is later on now. Sir Lamorak has proven himself again, and everyone is loving Sir Lamorak and admiring him, especially after he fordoes the evil custom at that castle that belongs to Morgan Le Fay, and overcomes many knights with his excellent jousting, and then fights with Sir Palamides and defeats him too. Thon the king was glad, and so was all the fellowship of the Round Table, except Sir Gawain and his brethren. And when they wist that it was Sir Lamorak, they had great despite of him, and were wonderly wroth with him, that he had put him to such a dishonour that day. He's just unhorsed Sir Gawain and Sir Gaheris earlier that day as well, so it's a sore point in particular. Then he called to him privily, this is Gawain, in council all his brethren, and to them said thus, Fire brethren, here may ye see, whom that we hat, King Arthur loveth, and whom that we love, he hateth. And wit you well, my fair brethren, that this Sir Lamorak will never love us, because we slew his father, King Pellinore. For we deemed that he slew our father, King Lot of Orkney, and for the death of King Pellinore, Sir Lamorak did us a sham to our mother. Therefore I will be revenged. Sire, said Sir Gawain his brethren, let's see, devise how ye will be revenged, and ye shall find us ready. Well, said Sir Gawain, hold ye still, and we shall espy our time. They're going to be revenged upon Sir Lamorak. Notice what Gawain half confesses. We slew his father, King Pellinore. Why? For we deemed that he slew our father. They believed that King Pellinore killed King Lot. King Pellinore didn't kill King Lot. Sir Balin killed King Lot. Remember, he killed all 11 of those kings in one day in battle. Sir Balin the Savage killed King Lot, as Sir Lamorak knows full well. It's the mindset of Sir Gawain and his brothers which is most disturbing here, right? And this is, again, as I referred to earlier, we can see kind of the lines drawing, right? Who are the good knights? Who are the bad knights? The good knights are still complicatedly good, but the bad knights are getting worse. Whom we hate, King Arthur loves, and whom we love, he hates. I'm not sure whom they love that he hates exactly, but it's clear whom they hate, whom he loves, right? And there's a short list there, but Sir Lamorak is absolutely at the top of it. But notice another thing. Sir Gawain is wrong about two things. One is the murder of his father, and he kind of, as I say, half admits he had been wrong about that. But what else is he wrong about? He doesn't even seem to be aware of the fact that he's wrong about this. Do you see what else he's wrong about? Look at his whole rationale, his whole mentality here. Sir Lamorak will never love us, because we slew his father, for we deemed that he slew our father, and for the death of King Pellinore, Sir Lamorak did us a sham to our mother. Therefore I will be revenged. David, what was the shame to their mother? He slept with their mother. That's what they're referring to. Yeah, it's tricky. So They're not wrong about that. That's true. That's true. Does Lamorak, is he having a paramour's relationship with Queen Morgause? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. That's not incorrect. And for the death of King Pellinore, Sir Lamorak did us a sham to our mother? Really? Is that how that went down? So Sir Lamorak bedded their mom out of vengeance to get back at them for killing his dad? Really? Is that what happened? That's not what happened. Is that Sir Lamorak? What have we seen of Sir Lamorak? As far as, not just his general character, but as far as Queen Morgause is concerned. What have we seen with Lamorak and Morgause? We haven't seen them interacting directly yet. But we have seen him talking about her. Remember the scene where he is fighting with Sir Meliagance, who's in love with Guinevere, about which one of their beloveds is the most beautiful, and then Lancelot comes in and breaks up the fight, and then ends up entering the fight with Sir Lamorak, right? Here's Lamorak literally going to toe-to-toe with Lancelot. And everybody, right? Remember Sir Logres comes in and tries to be peacemaker as well? And all of them are like, hey, man, we all love our ladies and we all think our ladies are the most beautiful. Remember Sir Logres is like, I have a lady and I think she's the most beautiful lady in the world. Are you going to beat me up too, Lancelot? The point is, did he just like sleep with Gawain's mom to get back at Gawain? No, he did not. He's like legitimately in love with Sir Gawain's mom. It's weird. It's a strange, like cross-generational thing. Is it weird that his beloved is not only like a couple decades older than him, but also like the wife of the, or like, you know, the mom of the people who killed his father? Like, yeah, it's complicated. It's weird. But he's not just doing it to spite Gawain. Takako, you're absolutely right. They are judging him by their standards. They don't get Lamorak at all. And they're setting out to perpetuate the violence, to dig themselves in deeper. They were bad to kill, to murder King Pellinore, right? He was a great knight. He was not guilty of the crime of which they accused him, and they killed him treacherously. They are what they are contemplating here is even worse. Hold on to that for a second. When King Mark is finally revealed and rebuked by King Arthur, you remember King Arthur makes Tristram and King Mark reconciled, right? He makes them swear oaths to get along, and Mark to accept Tristram back and totally not try to kill him anymore, and he makes everything okay, right? So he's all pleased with himself. Lancelot is not pleased. Alas, sighed Sir Lancelot unto King Arthur, what have ye done? For ye shall lose the man most of most worship that ever come into your court. Sir, it was his own desire, said King Arthur, and therefore I meek not do withal, for I have done all that I can, and mad him at accord. Accord? sighed Sir Launcelot. Now fie on that accord, for ye shall hear that he shall destroy Sir Tristram, other put him into prison, for he is the most coward and the vile and the vilounced king and knecht that is now living. And therewith Sir Launcelot departed, and came to King Mark, and said to him thus, Sir King, wit thou well, the good knecht Sir Tristram shall go with thee. Beware, I rede thee, of treason, for an thou mischief that knecht, be any manner of falsehood or treason, by the faith I owe to God and the order of knechthood, I shall slay thee mine own handis.
Lancelot is going to make this perfectly clear. So several things are really interesting about this. It's not, I mean, Lancelot's, connection to Tristram, everything like that's, fine. But several implications of this scene. One, yes, Arthur does look kind of naive here, right? Arthur's all pleased with him. So he thinks he's solved the problem, right? I made them swear oaths. I told them to go back home and be very, very good. And they said they would be good. And so all is well now, right? And Lancelot doesn't buy it at all. And we know, and the narrator tells us, Lancelot is right and Arthur is wrong. And Lancelot knows this. One thing, therefore, our first conclusion from this passage, Arthur is a bit of an idealist, right? Arthur wants to think that people are going to act like they're supposed to act, right? I don't think he's just generally naive, right? I don't think he's just a sucker, exactly. But he does seem to have, I don't know, a higher opinion of his own authority, perhaps, than is real. I don't know. He seems to think that by him making them swear an oath before him to do this, obviously it's going to be done, right? Lancelot suspects better. Lancelot's actions are also interesting. His king has made Marke swear. This gives Arthur the right to enforce the oath of Marke, right? Should Marke contemplate treason against Tristram and King Arthur hear of it, he would have the right to go down at, to rouse his vassals, come down to Tintagel like his father did before him, and rebuke King Marke, right? Lancelot doesn't seem to trust that, right? Or at least that's not enough for Lancelot. Nor does Lancelot come up and say, my king means it, right? Don't try him, man. No, he asserts his own authority. He adds his own authority to King Arthur's, right? So, the greatest king in all the land said, you better not do this. I am telling you that you better not do this because you better be personally afraid of me. I will personally come down and kill you with my own hands, right? As if the fear of Lancelot personally is a greater motivator to King Marke than the threats of King Arthur. Now, on the one hand, we know that to be true. Remember, when Lancelot comes galloping after King Marke, chasing him down, saying, I'm going to slay you with my own hands, we should be remembering Sir Dagonet, right? Riding up in King Marke, thinking it was Sir Lancelot, saying, I'm going to slay thee, right? So we have a really funny recapitulation of that comical moment, except it's not comical anymore, right? And although Lancelot here rather is being calm and rather than riding and shouting and stuff like Sir Dagonet did, nevertheless, we do have a recapitulation there. We know how afraid of Lancelot King Marke is, and should be. We know how outclassed King Marke is by even, medium good knights, right? Sir Lancelot, there's nothing he could do if Sir Lancelot chose to come after him. So again, it's not that Sir Lancelot's threat is, bad or wrong, and it certainly will be added incentive. But what does it say about Sir Lancelot that he feels the need to do this? And Devra, it is hard to forget that it's hard to forget that shield of Morgan Le Fay's, right, with the knights standing on the heads of the king and the queen, holding them in bondage and servage. Yeah. So I mean, he's not crossed the line, right? He's not crossed the line. This is not wrong for him to do. It's just interesting. We can see him on a certain path, right? He's not. Lines are important, and he hasn't crossed it yet, but we can see where the line is here. Really quickly, this is going to be important later on. Do I think two more? Yes, two more slides, and then we'll be done. Sir Percival has come to court. Sir Percival's awesome. Sir Percival is Lamorak's kid brother, right? And he comes, and he's clearly very young. Arthur agrees to make him a knight, but even Arthur, remember, says like he's not going to prove himself to be a good knight yet, right? And I think the implication, Percival is probably like 13 or something like that at this point. But anyway, then at dinner, when the king was set at the table, and every knight after he was of prowess, the king commanded him, Percival that is, to be set among mean knights. So he doesn't get a seat at the big boys' table, right? He has to sit at the kids' table with the mean knights. Remember the knights that Sir Balin was among, right? The low class, minor folks, the red shirts of the Arthurian court, right? And so was Sir Percival set as the king commanded. Then was there a maiden in the queen's court that was come of high blood, and she was dumb, and never spak word. Richt so she come straight into the hall, and went unto Sir Percival, and took him by the hand, and sighed aloud, that the king and all the knights might hear it. Arise, Sir Percival, the noble knight, and God is knight, and go with me. And so he did. And there she brought him to the right side of the Siege Perilous, and sighed, Fire knight, tak here thy siege, for that siege appertaineth to thee, and to none other. Right so she departed, and asked a priest, and as she was confessed and houselled, then she died. Then the king and all the court made great joy of Sir Percival. So we have a miraculous portent, right? That the damsel, the dumb, speaks, right? The dumb damsel who had never spoken a word speaks, and she speaks prophetically, right? She greets Sir Percival, calling him not only a noble knight but God's knight, and she calls him over and sits him down at the right hand of the Siege Perilous, which you may remember is the one siege upon which no one else has ever sat before, because if anyone sits there except the one who is destined to sit there, he will die. That's why it's perilous. But to the right of the Siege Perilous, am I remembering correctly? Wasn't that King Pellinor's seat? Is Sir Percival getting King Pellinor's seat? I kind of think he is getting his dad's old seat. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, Stephen, you're right. Then the damsel dies, and there was much rejoicing. You're right. I love, by the way, houselled is one of my, that's on my short list of favorite Middle English words. I love that. She was confessed and houselled, then she died. To be houselled, it means she was absolved. So she's doing last rites here. She knows she's going to die. So she confesses, and then she's houselled. She's absolved, and then she dies. Yeah. So, anyway, so a miracle acknowledging. So Sir Percival has been acknowledged miraculously in this semi-messianic way, right? There are definitely messianic overtones to Percival's arrival here, but he is not. even seating at the right hand of the Siege Perilous is, you have to admit, slightly messianic. He is not, of course, the greatest knight to come. He's probably not worthy to untie the latchet of the shoes of the one who is to come after him. But nevertheless, he's pretty important. You're right, Stephen. He's messianic, but he's not needlessly messianic. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So, okay, anyway. Oh, Karita, you want to see a lady getting a raw deal? Gawain arranges for his mom and Sir Lamorak to be in the same place. And thus the trap is set. And for to make an end of this matter, he sent unto her, and there betwixt them was a nicht assigned that Sir Lamorak should come to her. Thereof was war Sir Gaheris, and rode forth the same nicht, and waited upon Sir Lamorak. And then he saw where he come, riding all armed, and where he leaked, and tied his horse to a privy postern, and so he went into a parlour, and unarmed him, and then he went unto the queen's bed, and she made of him passing great joy, and he of her again, for either loved other passing sore. It's not a vengeance thing, right? They both love each other passing sore. They both love each other. This is a completely mutual relationship between this guy and their mom. Now notice how Malory is building the suspense here. We know what Gawain and his brothers were plotting, right? They are planning to kill Sir Lamorak. And oh boy, this sounds like everything is set, right? They've lured him out to this place where they not only spy him coming alone, right? And then they watch him unarm himself. Now he doesn't have his armor or his weapons with him, right? Clearly now is the time for them to spring their trap. So when Sir Gaheris saw his time, he come to their bed's side, all armed, with his sword naked. Oh boy, here it comes. And suddenly he got his mother by the hair, and struck off her head. When Sir Lamorak saw the blood dished upon him all hot, which was the blood that he loved passing well, wit you well he was sore abashed and dismayed of that dolorous sight. And therewithal Sir Lamorak leapt out of the bed in his shirt as a knight dismayed, sighing thus, Ah, Sir Gaheris, knight of the Table Round, foul and evil have you done, and to you great shame. Alas, why have ye slain your mother that bare you? For with more right ye should have slain me. The offence hast thou done, sighed Sir Gaheris. Notwithstanding, a man is born to offer his service, but yet shouldest thou beware with whom thou meddlest, for thou hast put my brethren and me to a shame, and thy father slew our father, and thou to lie by our mother is too much shame for us to suffer. And as for thy father, King Pellinore, my brother Sir Gawain and I slew him. Ye did the more wrong, said Sir Lamorak, for my father slew not your father. It was Balin le Savage. As yet my father's death is not revenged. Okay, that sentence, everything seems to be going according to plan, right? My expectations, which I felt had been built by Malory in the early scenes, seems to be running its course, right? Until suddenly he got his mother by the hair and strake off her head. I'll never forget when I first read that sentence. I just sat there like, I can't believe what I just read. I was way more shocked even than Sir Lamorak was, right? And the description, oh my goodness. The description of Morgause's blood splashing onto Sir Lamorak, the heat of her blood, the blood of the woman that he loves. Oh man, like the tactile image of feeling her blood splashing on him and his shock
right? The scene is horrifying. Foul and evil have you done? I mean, and his first words were almost exactly what I was thinking myself when I first read it. Sir Gaheris, Knight of the Table Round. Like, really? Killing another knight because you think he killed your relative is not great, right? The greatest knights don't do that kind of thing. They understand that, again, as we said at the beginning, contact sport, but occupational hazard. But it's understandable, even ganging up on a knight, that's not good, right? But again, it could be worse. That Gaheris, Gawain's brother, would just come and would stop his decide that the shame that their mother is being put to by Sir Lamorak needs to be stopped by decapitating his own mom is mind-blowing, right? I mean, obviously he is punishing her also, right? He blames her for this shame. At what it first looked like maybe a misunderstanding, that Sir Lamorak is using their mom for vengeance against them, in order to bring shame to them, to pay them back for killing his dad. You might think, well, maybe it's a misunderstanding, right? They assume that that's why Lamorak is doing it, but they don't really get that it's mutual between the two of them. No, actually, they do seem to get that it's mutual between the two of them, and that would seem to be why Sir Gaheris decapitates her, right? Because they feel shamed by the actions of their mother. And they do want to punish Sir Lamorak, but they don't just want to kill him, right? They want to kill his lady in his embrace so that her blood sprays all over his face and he's left embracing her headless corpse in bed. That's the vengeance that Sir Gaheris plans against the punishment for his mother for bringing shame to them, and that's the vengeance that he plans against Sir Lamorak. That is horrifying. That is... the bad guys are getting worse, right? And Gaheris had been a pretty good guy, all things considered. Not obviously, psychopathic or anything. We had Sir Gaheris quite a bit in this last section. He was traveling with Sir Dinadan for a little while. He was interacting with King Marke in an appropriately unflattering way. But man, foul and evil has he done indeed. Those are harsh. It's not just done unknightly. It's not even just treason, right? He has shamed himself forever. He has done evil. He has way, way beyond crossed the line, right? Why have ye slain your mother that bare you? Like, he can't even process this, right? And then the rationale that he gives, he's like, and it's not even true. Like, my dad didn't even kill your dad. You psychopaths are just after my family for no good reason. Oh, man. It's one thing to perpetuate the cycle of violence. It's another thing entirely to, like, it never really started. They started it. This whole thing is a completely one-sided vendetta between, the Gawain family and the Pellinor family. All right. Well, with that pleasant scene, we're going to stop for tonight. We almost got to the end there. That was pretty close. We've got a couple things left. Yeah, look at that. We got everything, but we only have two more slides. Okay. Yep. So we'll finish those up next time, and then we'll go on. So the
the further reading schedule is posted on the website now, finally, belatedly. So for next week, we're going to read up to, but not including, the story of Alexander the Orphan. Okay, so we're going to be reading the section which is... sorry. We're starting with Alexander the Orphan. I'm sorry. Then we're reading Alexander. We just did read up to, but not including Alexander the Orphan. Sorry, this is when I do too many reading assignments in one sitting. No, we're going to read the story of Alexander the Orphan, and then we're going to read the story. Then we're going to read about the tournament at Surluse. Right. So that's where we're going. And I just picked up Jonathan Strange, which is totally not the right book. Wrong, thick red book I just picked up. Yeah, so we're gonna read. We're gonna read about Alexander the Orphan and the tournament at Surluse, but we're stopping at Joyous Guard. Okay, so we'll pick up at Joyous Guard after Christmas. Okay, yeah, I agree, Karina. Sweet dreams, kids. Absolutely. With this pleasant thought, we'll all head off to sleep. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and Dollar Stroke is right. It's time to reset the days since last lady beheaded to assign to 0. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thanks, everybody. Good night. We will be back next week, and then we'll be off for the holidays, but I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks, everybody. Good night. The Mythgard Academy has been offering in-depth discussions of awesome books and films since 2013, completely free to attend and free to download. If you've enjoyed our discussions and would like to help them continue, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.